This story is the last of 3 in a series of stories or parables in Luke concerning something lost and found. The first was the parable of the lost sheep, and the second was the parable of the lost coin. These last 2, the coin and the lost son, are only found in Luke. All 3 parables involve not only something that was lost, but more, they involve someone that was looking for what was lost. But this last parable of the lost is not like the other 2. It extends directly and deeper into our lives, and for that reason, it is one of the most recognized and beloved parables. The first 2 parables of lost and found indicate some level of anxiety demonstrated by someone who was greatly distressed over that which was lost but is now found. This parable of the lost son builds upon that anxiety, but draws our emotion out of us and into the story. In return, Luke places the emotions of all the characters involved right into our arms, for us to feel and to carry their weight. This parable is multi-level and has something for everyone. Now this morning I want to talk about those of us who might see themselves in the role of the eldest son. Those who might find it hard to forgive, even when the grievance wasn't against us. The eldest brother in this story had certain cultural rights in first century Palestine. As the eldest, he would inherit 2 portions of his father's inheritance, with the younger brother only inheriting 1 portion. In this parable, the youngest son asked for his inheritance, his 1 portion, to be given to him even before the father had died. Sort of an odd request. And the youngest son renounced any further claims upon his inheritance. Now the eldest son had lost nothing material in this transaction. If the youngest son had distanced himself from his father by demanding his inheritance and then going out and seeing the world and living the high life, so had the eldest son distanced himself based on the dialogue we hear. He had distanced himself from his father and had done so well before the return of the prodigal. After interrogating the servant concerning the celebration going on, interrogating the servant instead of asking his father, the eldest son refuses to go into the house to witness his father's rejoicing, and he refuses to participate in greeting his brother back to the household. He is angry and places physical distance between himself and those celebrating. His father comes out of the house. The house that will be the eldest brother's, the eldest son, along with all the belongings in it. The father comes out of that house to check on him. And the eldest son says to him, "Listen." No term of endearment like "Father, please listen." The eldest son says, "Listen, I work for you like a slave. I never questioned anything you ever told me to do, and yet you haven't even given me so much as a goat to cook, so that me and my friends could have a party." Notice that the party doesn't include, the invitation doesn't include the father. "Then your son," says the eldest, "your son, who wasted all the money you gave him on prostitutes and debauchery, comes home, and you kill the fatted calf for him." The eldest son assumes some vices. Now, just as an aside, every time I hear the reference to the fatted calf, some specific times pop up for me in my memory. I remember my father always jokingly telling my mother when I came home from college, as I was walking through the door, "Edith, kill the fatted calf, your son is home." And another is as I was working with high school youth at Camp Macon. The leaders there were putting on a play about the prodigal son in front of the 100 and so students. Arthur was one of the leaders, and he was playing the part of the father. And we got to that line about talking to the servant and telling him what to do. Arthur does it boldly and says, "My son has returned. Kill the catted calf." I digress. Back to the story. The eldest son is blind to his constant relationship that he and his father have. Blind to the fact that everything the father has is his also. The eldest son views his relationship with his father as nothing more than a set of rules to follow. I do this, and in turn, you will do that. He refers to himself as a slave, the status that the younger son was eager to assume in his father's household after suffering in his life away from home. And the father reminds the eldest son that all he has is his, and that a celebration is necessary because his brother was dead, but now is alive. And to see the full picture in this parable, we have to listen to the words that opened up the gospel that Barbara read. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." The Pharisees, referred to by Luke, didn't understand about repentance and recovery. As far as they were concerned, they didn't need to know. They were following the rules. We do this, and God will do that. They considered themselves spotless, following the law. It was lost on them why Jesus, also a teacher and religious leader of the Jews, would cohort with sinners. So knowing why Jesus offered up these parables, a few of the questions that lie before us from the story and the characters' take on life are: do we demand our rights before working on relationship, as did the young son? Do we live by our works alone, and are we proud of them? Or do we recognize God's grace in our lives and in what we've done? Do we approach God with, "I'll do this, but you'd better do that"? During this Lenten season, are we reflecting on whether we are ready to forgive, or are we going to demand that God treats others as they deserve, and thus as we deserve? It is important that we remember as we approach Holy Week that we all return home as sinners, as those who have broken relationship with God and neighbor. For those whose journey has taken them far away from relationship with the Creator, and heed the constant call of grace to come back into the household of God, the catted calf awaits. Amen.